Welcome to the Crafty Mini, and in this one we're going to be painting this little diorama that I've knocked up with this really cool sort of toad demon thing, and then I've just got to put it on a base with a bit of texture, and we're going to do a little bit of UV resin as well, just feel like a swamp type feel. This video is more about, it's not so much the actual process I use when I'm painting it, although I will go into some of the steps. It's more about us as hobbyists and the things we do and the things that we want to get from our projects. Now, the big one, which those who've watched the channel for a long time, I'm always badgering on about this. Me and Welsh mention it a lot with our podcast that we're doing, and it's basically have fun and enjoy what you're doing. This is your hobby; it's for you. Don't be worried about sort of the things that you see out there in multimedia, what other people are doing with the miniatures that you may or may not have, and for some of us, following paint schemes and things like that, yep, that's cool, and if it helps you progress in the hobby, more power to you. But ultimately the goal is always the same, and it's have fun with what you're doing, and that's it. That is the most important thing. You've got to, if you're not enjoying this, then it's not a hobby, it becomes a job, it becomes a chore, and then you're not going to have fun doing it. You're not going to enjoy the process. And there's obviously different aspects of that. So for those who've watched a couple of 2 or 3 episodes ago, the competition piece I did. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and that I put everything into it to paint it to the best that I can. This is not like that. This is another bit of enjoyment I get, is when I create something that it's a bit fun, a bit unique, and it sort of all marries together, especially when I'm doing a diorama. Now, dioramas I don't do much of on the channel. I tend to do these more in my private time, and even then not that often. But when I get an idea and I put something together that is a diorama, I just have absolute tons of fun doing it, and that's what this video is about. And it's just how the sort of process and why it's important that you should have fun doing your hobby. Right, so with all that being said, let's get on to it. So base coated the toad this greeny colour, and I'm going in with a brighter green mixed in with the original. Same sort of steps that I do in all my paint jobs, progressively building up the highlights of those colours, picking out key areas and things like that. Now with this we're going to be using some browns and some other things, and then all the colours that are on the palette I'm actually going to be mixing together, and that'll be the groundwork as well, with a couple of washes just to deepen all the contrast of the different shades of green and things. Now, as I say, this is the title of the thumbnail. Why I fell in love with this toad. It was because of just the amount of fun I've had painting it. Now, looking at it as I'm doing this little voiceover, it's a fun piece. It's making me smile. It's not the best paint job. I could highlight it up way more. I could definitely put more detail and more little bits into it. But the overall piece, when you're looking at it as a whole, it's just making me smile and laugh and then giggle to myself. This goes down to a couple of things. So the fact that I've put it in its own little sort of microcosm, its own diorama, next to this swamp piece, and all the ground's all wet, and because of the way the washes I've used and a bit of gloss varnish and things, you've got the reflections from the actual UV resin, so it looks like actual water up against the bank of this muddy swamp. But the main thing is that it's got to be the miniature itself. This is one of the things I look for when I'm out hunting for 3D printed miniatures. Something that speaks to me, a bit of character. Now this toad, the way he is, he's got this big sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but this really fat chin, this big arching lips that go down, and it's got a lot of attitude and a lot of character, and that's what's making me laugh. Similar to the mascot of the channel, the Mushroom Man, on all the videos. It's the same thing as that. It's the big upturned lip, the sort of nonchalant grin. It just makes me laugh and smile, and there's something about it. If you can find something like that, you'll have a lot more enjoyment painting it, because I don't know, maybe it's you're putting a bit of yourself into it, I'm not sure, but there's just something about it that's making me smile, and that's the point of this video. Is we've got to remember to enjoy our hobbies, enjoy what we do. Because thinking about it, how many of us, and I myself am definitely guilty of this, But how many of us in the past have we bought, let's say, I don't know, an army box set or a couple of miniatures, maybe for a game or just to paint, whatever it might be, and we've bought them with the best intention. We're going, oh, that's going to be, a load of fun to paint. That looks like it's going to be interesting. I'm going to enjoy kit bashing that, or whatever it might be. And then we come to actually doing the project, and we're getting bored, and we're finding it. Oh, this is a bit of a struggle. I'm having to go through and do things. I'm really not enjoying this. I'm getting a bit bored and fed up. And then some of those projects either just get boxed away for a couple of weeks, and we do something else, or even worse, they're in a cupboard or a box somewhere of all this stuff that you've bought that you've not really wanted to paint because you just, at the time it looked good, but when it came to putting the paint on the brush, it just wasn't speaking to you. You weren't having fun. I would argue all of us have experienced this, all of us in this hobby, at least once, if not more. And I think this is why we get these quote unquote piles of shame. It's a term I'm not a fan of because it shouldn't be something you're ashamed of. But it's the reason we have these big piles of miniatures and box sets that we bought with the best intentions and never actually got around to finishing them. And then they end up just taking up space. We don't know what to do with them. Also, there's the whole point, you buy something new and then you want to crack on with that, maybe a new game or a new system or a new army or whatever it might be. And then the older stuff sort of gets left behind. Now, with this particular miniature, I bought this, I think it was last month, with the intention of painting it just because it was a cool looking miniature. But it did sit there for a while I was painting other stuff and getting other videos done for the channel. And it sat there, and it was because I wanted to do something with it. I didn't want it just on its little circular base that was plain. And I could do a bit of ground basing and things to set it off a little bit, but it wouldn't have looked anywhere near as fun, and it wouldn't have been as fun to paint. So I thought, I've got a box of these old wooden, I'm not even sure what they are, thick coasters, and I thought, right, I'll put it onto one of those and we'll jazz up the base a little bit. And as soon as I started putting all the fillers and things on and mounting it so the toad's a little bit higher than where we're going to have the lowland with the wet and everything, it just came to life and everything was just starting to work. And I think at times we need to remember that it's okay if a project sits there for a little bit, but I don't think we should box it away. Have it sit there in front of you on your workspace while you're working on things, because you'll keep glimpsing back to it, and eventually you're going to come up with something that'll make it work. I don't know whether that's just me, but if there's anyone else who works like that or feels that that's the case, let me know in the comments. But yeah, and then eventually you get these projects out and they get finished, and they are just enjoyable to paint. And again, not to keep hitting the same thing over the head, but isn't that the point of the hobby? It's something we enjoy doing and something that we want to do more of. I don't know, it's a strange one. As I say with this, I just love the process of doing this project. It perhaps looks a bit more difficult than it actually is. It's just a lot of wet blending, a bit of overbrushing and various shades of green, and just mixing loads of stuff on the palette and just winging it and going for it, and not really having a sort of a full colour scheme in motion. I mean, it started off that way. I looked at pictures of toads and things and looked at all the colour variations. In the end I was just like, nah, we'll do greens and browns. Not bother with like little coloured spots and things like that. Although the miniature is detailed enough to warrant all that extra work, it's just, I don't know, sometimes I think we get overcomplicating ourselves with all like the minutiae of details and things like that. And I don't know whether this is more for me because I've just come from doing two competition pieces. One in particular I put everything into, and it sort of burnt me out a little bit. It was a case of, let's just go back and do something a bit fun, a bit simple, and not worry about having to pick out all the individual little spines and teeth. So long as they've got a bit of colour to variate them, when you see it as a whole, the whole thing works. And there's things that I've learnt off this as well. So like, for example, the basing has worked pretty good. I should have maybe put a bit more of the filler. I use wool filler as a base before I put the texture on top. A bit more of that, just because I can see on the side in particular where you can see the levels that I've sort of glued together to make the toad higher on the base. And I had this little leaf cutter which I couldn't find, which I was going to do these little, you punch little leaves that are to scale and then scatter some of them about. I don't know where that's gone, but that would be a cool little thing to add to it, which I might do in the future. And also playing with UV resin again, because I haven't done it for a while. And it's a fun little tool, and you can have you can do a lot of different things with it, and not just for dioramas like this. It's good for actually gluing resin pieces together and making a really hard bond, you know, instead of like the usual sort of super glue and things. But yeah, ultimately, like we always say, have fun, enjoy what you're doing. Make sure that, you know, if you're feeling disheartened about a project, it's okay to have it on the back burner for a bit, but try not to box it away, because I think it then gets forgotten, and then we go, oh yeah, I won't do that. Like for example, I've got over my shoulder here the Blackstone Fortress and City of the Damned. Now the Blackstone Fortress, I've painted all of the main miniatures, all like the heroes and the main villains, and all I've got left now is all the traitor guard just sitting there, and I'm looking at them going, I don't really want to do that. That's a lot of the same miniature. I'm going to get bored very quickly. But truth is, I've not actually sat and tried, because it could be that I do 2 or 3 and really enjoy them, and then it's breaking that process of just letting things sit there and going to something new. And you know, ultimately it's our money, we can do what we want with it, but it's a shame, because there's some good stuff there that's not seeing the light of day, that's not getting painted. Yeah, I don't know if this rant's making sense to people. You know, have fun. It's your money, it's your hobby. But sometimes let's not just leave it all sitting there, just tucked away, because there's stuff there that we could be learning how to paint. And any time we put paint to brush, it's all muscle memory. It's all helping towards the finished thing, and we're learning new techniques and trying new things. You know, maybe that's the point of it. I'm not sure. Right, so for a wrap up then, where am I actually going with all this? As I'm watching this footage back and I'm talking, there's no script or anything, as there never is for any of my videos. This was an absolute joy to do. It's not the best paint job I've ever done. It's the first diorama I've done in a while, so that was a big part of it. But the miniature itself, so whoever sculpted this, hats off to you. It's brilliant. You know, it's got bags of character and attitude, which I love. It's a monstrous creature, which is like, that's my go-to, and it was just fun from start to finish. At no point did I get bored or jaded. It took a couple of hours in one sitting. I just sat there and blasted this thing out. It was absolute joy to paint. I've no new techniques or anything, just fun. And ultimately that's the key point of this message, and every so often I bang on about it, but yeah, have fun with what we're doing. Yeah, thank you all very much for indulging this crazy rant and me trying to explain why I absolutely fell in love with this toad. I hope you agree in that overall it's a nice piece, finished. Yeah, it could have some bit more details and things done to it, but meh. That's not what was important to this. It was more the process and falling back in love with painting. Because as people might know, I've mentioned in other videos and the podcast with Welsh that I tend to paint in batches, about 4 or 5 weeks worth of stuff, get it all edited, so I'm always working ahead of myself, and then I'll have a couple of weeks off and not really do anything, and then come back to it. And it's usually that first or second project when I've come back that I do something a bit different, and it's the one that I enjoy the most out of the batch. But yeah, let me know what people think. I don't like this idea of pile of shame. I just don't like it. It shouldn't be something you're ashamed of. But yeah, what do people do to sort of remotivate themselves to get back into the hobby? Is there the things that they'd love to try but they're a bit scared of? Anything like that, just let me know, and it's something we can discuss in the future, or maybe even on a podcast. But thank you all very much for indulging and listening to me for, what is this, about 12 and a half minutes now of just non-stop jabbering on. But thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all on the next one. Please don't forget to come along and watch the podcasts every other Friday. And if you've got any questions or things that you want us to talk about in the podcast, please let me or Welsh know on our respective channels, or sometimes we'll put posts up and just asking for feedback on things.
just whack a comment in there. We do read absolutely every single one. We reply to everyone, and if there's cool things there that we're going to use, we'll give you a shout out on the podcast as well. And we'll do, even if it's something really interesting in depth, we'll do a whole episode on it as well. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.